How you boys doing?
I'm doing all right. I've missed you guys.
Oh, I missed you too. Anything exciting that you want to talk about that you've been up to?
I've been working, literally. It's some shit really hit the fan towards like the end of last season at work. And I was like, okay, well, this stuff will all like, you know, I'll be able to work it out relatively soon, then get to my like nice podcast break where I can play through all the SNES version and then do like a different one and check out and then no, things just kept being on fire and shit kept hitting the fan. But on the plus side of that, I was able to get friend of the show and former guest Creepy Dave a job in my hell. Ooh. Which sounds like you're like, dude, you just complain about work all the time. Why would you? Shockingly, the job that we have is infinitely better than the last job that he had. So
the bar could not be lower.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I haven't really
some good charitable work though on your stream though too, right?
That's true. Yeah. Again, another project that I wish I had more time that I could have dedicated to it, but it is going really well. Friend of the show, Ashwin, kind of started a charity team for displaced Palestinian families through a charity called the Rebuilding Alliance. And she just got a bunch of other streamers who are passionate about that cause together to raise some money. And I don't know when this episode's coming out. The campaign will probably be over by then because there's only a couple more days left in it. But we hit a lot of milestones already, and I have a lot of promises that I need to make good on. And we're close to one that...
You're going to speedrun of Final Fantasy?
So not yet. As of right now, we're at like 1,300, I think, almost 1,400. But if I hit 2,000, I did say that I would
so close
a Final Fantasy speedrun. So I'm with the next couple of streams that we have planned to close out the charity. It's looking like I'm gonna have to learn one. I was like, there's no way. I was like, that'll just be good to, you know, maybe get people throwing down some, you know, some cash or something. And then it was like, oh my God, we're so fucking close to it. And
welcome to hell.
Yeah. So that should be fun.
Well, at least you didn't say like that you would learn how to speedrun one and get a good time on it.
That's true. That is true. I could just honestly just do a fucking let's play and be like, that was my speedrun.
Dude, for 8 you could. It's pretty much
exactly.
like by the numbers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a really just obscure but like very short one you could just blow through.
Chocobo Mystery Dungeon or something.
Chocobo Kart Story Mode.
Yeah. Let me check it on speedrun.com. Oh my God, that one's 15 hours.
How about you, Alex? What have you been up to?
Well, I have not stopped editing audios. Took a week off from my audio editing job to go record with my band, and which was a success. We're still working on it, and I'm still editing it. And then I have to edit this.
Back to the old editing minds.
Yeah. You have 3 families, and they're all audio editing.
All right.
I'm excited to do a tour de four.
Tour de four. That's good.
Oh, nice. It took me a second.
I get it.
I do want to... I'll spoil it for you, Alex. I always... for the listener who never sees any of this, I always try and make my audio file a clever pun or some shit for like the week, and mine currently is back 4 more, but it's the Roman numeral 4.
By the way, the Chocobo Racing story mode is only...
It's like 12 minutes, I think. Yeah. It would be such a fuck you. Thanks for the $2,000, nerds. Here's me playing a game for 40 minutes.
Yeah, it could be your new demon tower.
True.
Yeah.
But no, I do plan on doing... I think I actually went on
it.
Ooh, that changes everything, actually. I think I did go on the record and say... excuse me. I know I'm dying. I can't run speed. I can't speed run a Final Fantasy game now. I'm gonna get water. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
You're good. So Carl's dead, Alex. How are we gonna continue this podcast?
And then there was 2.
Well, it's 4 in Japanese. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, sorry about that. What I was trying to say was I went on the record during one of my streams and said, I'm not going to baby out and do like Final Fantasy 1, which is only like an hour or 2, or like FF7 PC or something, which I actually might end up doing.
That's an insult to this guy R sick and Riles G.
No disrespect to them at all. I just mean in terms of like, I set it so high as a milestone that I was like, I need it to be like worth the amount that I'm asking for it. So I'm kind of thinking of doing 8. It may take a really long time for me to get there. It might just be like one day I do disc 1 practice.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But we'll see.
Honestly, disc 1 is where all of the challenge is. So if you like practice disc 1, you can read the notes through the rest of it, to be honest with you, and not even like lose that much time. In my opinion, there are some like manipulations you can do at the end to save time, but like,
I don't need to save time.
We haven't even gotten to the intro, and you guys are already talking about 8.
I know. Okay. Let's do the intro, and by the intro, I mean ask me how I've been.
Curtis, what have you been up to? How have you been?
Well, let me tell you how I've been. I've been so good, y'all. I've been so good. I'm sleeping regularly. I'm eating correctly. I got a good state of mental health. I am connected with my friends and all of that.
You haven't had McDonald's in years?
I haven't had McDonald's in years. I feel like a Superman, and frankly, all that ends today because we're starting FF4, baby! This is the Every F and FF podcast, and my life is over. I am Curtis.
I'm Carl.
I'm Alex, I guess.
Yeah, FF4. Have y'all played it?
No, I have not. I was hoping that my answer would be different by the time we started recording this, with the like kind of extended break that we took, like longer than I think any of us intended for.
Sure.
But I literally just have not had any fucking time.
It do be that way.
Yeah.
Alex, how about you?
I think I played like an hour or 2 of it before we even ended last season.
Well, if it was the SNES version, that's enough time to get through about half of the game. So,
well, speaking of, I'm playing the DS version.
Oh yeah, so we should get into this. Okay, actually, before we do that, I'll say that this is the first video game that I ever got into. Period. Like, I was not big on video games at all when I was like little, and then
a football player.
Yeah, I was like a toddler football player.
Varsity.
And my cousin had this game, and it blew my mind so thoroughly that from then on I was just like, Mom, Dad, you have to get me video games. Like, this is the one. So this one has like a special place in my heart for sure.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so there are many different versions of this game, right? Like there are several different versions. And so I think that maybe the best way to talk about that is by maybe going over a little history of the game.
Speak on it.
Does that make sense?
Chronology of it all.
Yeah, since I feel like the place where we sometimes fall behind compared to our competitor podcasts, right, is that we're like, I don't know who made this game. Like, I don't know when it came out. Like, who knows? So I actually did research.
Video games are just magic. They're just a magic thing that appears on a rectangle sometimes. And
that's right.
There's little people that I command with buttons, so...
They actually live in the cartridge, and they like...
Yeah, they live in my TV.
They live in your TV.
When I turn it off, they die.
That's right. And honestly, when I'm playing it, sometimes they die too. Not very good at
Especially when
it.
I'm playing it, they die.
I'm reading the history, and it seems like there's even more versions than you might even know, because they started and then they decided to scrap it and just turn it into Secret of Mana instead.
Let's talk about that. This is my favorite thing that I read. So, according to a 2007-2008 interview with Hiromichi Tanaka, who went on to be the producer of Secret of Mana, spoiler, the original. So after they did FF1, 2, and 3, they were like, all right, SNES, or I guess the Super Famicom's coming out. They're making this new game for this new system. And they wanted to make it an action game. They were like, yo, menus are a thing of the past. Let's go all action, baby. And started making it. And then it just did not feel like a Final Fantasy game at all, right? And so it ended up becoming Seiken Densetsu 2 or Secret of Mana for the SNES. So that's originally was going to be Final Fantasy 4. And what I think is really funny is that producer also said in an interview that while they were building the game, they referred to it as Chrono Trigger. What? So Final Fantasy IV was Seiken Densetsu 2 was all of those games at some point.
Damn.
So like
holy
when you play
shit.
Secret of Mana, it was FF4, and then they referred to it as Chrono Trigger, and then we're like, no, actually it's more like Seiken Densetsu 2.
They're like, okay, this all action thing isn't working. We got to do some menus, and we're going to change the name of it to Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars.
Well, it's funny that you'd mentioned that one as well, because Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars has a secret boss that's a send up of a boss in this game.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, very, very famous. What's really cool too is just the soundtrack on Super Mario RPG has the one of the boss battle themes from this game. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yep.
For that
it is like
specific thing
slightly remixed, but it's like 90% the same.
Yeah, and it's just funny anytime, if you're watching a streamer who is like listening to Super Mario, like I watched this one streamer who has just gotten into the habit of putting on the Super Mario RPG thing as he does Dark Souls randomizer runs. So it's just him getting like absolutely fucked by like the randomness of it, and there's just like a Manus just attacking him, an undead bird or something. It's just like bam, 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 bam. It's really good. But then
so
like
good.
that the Final Fantasy song will come on, and he'll be like, oh yeah, I love the Super Mario RPG soundtrack, and like there'll be people in his chat who's like, oh, actually, this is Final Fantasy. It's like, shut up.
Yeah. Look, this is the Yoko Shimomura version. It is the better version. Fuck off. Yeah, so that's pretty crazy. The other thing was, too, it sounds like they were thinking of it when they were making it as almost the sequel to Final Fantasy II in the way that Final Fantasy III is a sequel to 1. Because, like, Final Fantasy 1 on the Famicom, we played that, so we know how that kind of operates. And they get rid of all the job systems, right, for Final Fantasy 2 for the Famicom, and they make it very story heavy, where it's like, okay, no, the characters are characters, they have names, they all go through character growth as the game progresses, and that's what the game's going to be about. 3 comes out, it's back to jobs, right? So 4 to them was a lot like, okay, we're going to do what 2 did. We're going to have characters with names that grow and change as time goes on. And because of that, there's no job system in FF2 or 4, however you want to look at it, right? I'm going to call it FF4. I'm just going to call it FF4 because that's technically what it is, right? So,
yeah, we'll call it FF4, yeah.
Yeah, and if I specifically mean the SNES version, I'll call it SNES 2. So that'll be the way we do it.
And it's actually pronounced Final Fantasy IVth, but we'll for the sake of the podcast, we'll just call it 4.
Yeah, so they chop down, and there's no job system. There's not on the Super Famicom SNES version. There's like no character customization whatsoever. It's just you just get your party members. They have the stats that they have, and they learn what they learn when they learn it, and that's it. And you just play with that. So the battle director for this game was like, we need to have. Actually, I have his name written down. Let me pull that up real quick. Hiroyuki Ito. He was the battle director. He said, well, we have to have something else going on so this game is not so boring. So he invented the ATB system for this game. So like something that would last all the way up to 9. Yeah, never heard of that. Well, actually, and it was in 12 as well, and 13. So yeah, it's in a lot of them. So this is where the active time battle thing originates. It's a little different than later versions in that your bar fills up, your meter for when you get to move will fill up. Then you take an action, and there's another wait in between picking your action and executing it, depending on what that action is that you're choosing. So like attacks will pop off pretty much instantaneously, but spells have an additional wait time on top of them. So you have to wait for your turn, cast the spell, and then the wait time for the spell. Now that may be different in like the DS version. So
that's pretty sick. That's really cool because like I feel like that's kind of a thing that a lot of like modern games sort of do in a different way. Like even action RPGs where it's like, oh, there'll be an animation that you need to go through. So more powerful spells or something might take longer to actually have a casting time. So that way enemies can kind of counter it or what have you.
Right.
I didn't realize that Final Fantasy follow the same sort of convention that like early Resident Evil games did, where it was like the direct sequel skipped games. So it was like Resident Evil 1 with the mansion, and Jill Valentine and Chris. And then they were like, okay, cool. Like now we're doing a different one. It's going to follow this new character, this new cast of characters.
Well, they're not direct sequels in the way that they are totally different stories, but they're like spiritual sequels.
Yeah. I mean, all of Resident Evil is obviously connected as a cohesive. Well, I mean, was cohesive at one point, and then Albert Wesker became, I don't know, a god or whatever the fuck. But
speaking of spiritual sequels, Between the Buried and Me announced Colors 2 today.
I saw that.
What?
New Colors just dropped.
Stoked as hell about that. Anyway,
can't wait to see Blue 2.
Well, yeah, with 2 white, 2 walls is something I saw somebody say.
Well, they also announced Sonic Colors too, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Between the Buried and Me is doing the soundtrack for Sonic Colors 2.
I would fucking own. I would buy the first Sonic game that I bought in years if that were the case.
Yeah, right. So the game gets released in July 1991 in Japan. And then not too long after, only a couple months, it's released in America, right? And then it's released again in Japan as Final Fantasy 2 or Final Fantasy 4 Easy Type, where they changed some of the HPs around. They made the game a little bit easier. But the real thing that made it Easy Type is that they changed the dialogue. So there's a lot of dialogue that like takes from like ye old English Shakespearean words, right? And the thing about kanji is you either know the kanji or you don't. And so like a lot of children couldn't play Final Fantasy 4. So they were like, yeah, let's not do that. So they made it like.
Yeah, it seemed like it was smart. They were trying to like, we want to be able to like make this playable for younger kids.
Yeah. And it looks like, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say it was interesting too, because I saw an interview with Hironobu Sakaguchi just about this, because he was the director of this game. 4 was his vision, and then suddenly they have to add this easy one, and he famously went on Twitter at the time, which existed in the 90s, and he added every person who downloaded it and said, you cheated not only the game but yourself. You didn't grow, you didn't improve, you took a shortcut and gained nothing. You experienced a hollow victory, nothing was risked and nothing was gained. It's sad that you don't know the difference.
A legendary Sakaguchi quote. Here, my favorite. Okay, so one of the things people say a lot about Final Fantasy 2, SNES 2, is that they toned it down and made it easier for the American audiences because American audiences are babies and can't play hard games. And there may be like an ounce of truth to that, yeah. But it sounds like the larger reason for that, according to like interviews that I read, is that they were like, no, game like skew younger in America.
Alex,
like,
bleep that out.
Yeah, bleep the G word out. But apparently, like the idea was that gamers skew younger in America, so they were like, well, you're not gonna have like adults playing this in America. They're not gonna like the kids are not going to like this difficulty. We need to make it more like child friendly. So like it is in fact because they thought the gamers in America could not handle it, but that's because our demographic skewed younger for playing video games. It was still seen as like a child's hobby here.
Yeah, and of course, famously, everyone knows that Final Fantasy IV in the US when it was released, it was actually called Doki Doki Panic, and it was it was not as hard as Final Fantasy IV when it got released in the US, called Final Fantasy IV: The Lost Levels, during the year of Luigi. Of course,
that's right. My favorite localization story though that I read during this whole thing was so I was reading interviews from all like the developers and everything talking about the localization, and my favorite one is that they didn't have like a big localization team, and they kind of like left it to the very end. They were like, oh shit, we're gonna release this in America, I guess we better get this going. So the localization team, which was not very many people, never played the game. So we'll get into the translations here in a moment, but they never got to play the game, so they had to like piecemeal all the words together without context and like translate it, which is very, very difficult. But the best story that I heard was that the game designer Takashi Tokita, who would later go on to direct Chrono Trigger and Parasite Eve, was in charge of coming to America. Because instead of hiring a bunch of Americans or English speakers in Japan, they were like, well, there's an infinite amount of them in America, so we'll just go to America, rent an office, hire a couple, and do it. So he gets there. He gets his office, starts hiring people, and then realizes he left all of the discs with Final Fantasy in Japan.
Oh, no.
He had to like word back to Japan and go like, I left the game there. Please ship it to me right now. And I was like, oh yeah, there was no internet back, like, as far as usable internet back in the day.
Fax it to me.
Yeah. So
That
like
is fucking
they literally
amazing.
had to have like floppy disks with the fucking game on it. And he had them all in a box, but he left the box in Japan. And that's incredible.
Oh my god, that's wonderful. I feel like this might become a theme in future seasons of the pod, let's say, where we might have even talked about it in passing before, but there's some pretty amazing localization stories involving some Final Fantasy
There's
games.
so many good ones, yeah.
One in particular that I will not mention because I feel like we've already hit our quota of talking about this one
FF8
particular
for the
Final
day.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it. Okay. I thought you were gonna be like, I don't want to mention it, but all right. Let's see. What other stories have I read here? Oh yeah, but okay. So like we were saying, there's a ton of different versions of this game.
So
as
there's
part
the
of-
original. There's Easy Type. Then it got localized as 2 because 2 and 3 never came to US.
Right.
Localization was a lot different back then. It wasn't things being like localized simultaneously.
Right.
And then it got like remade for the PlayStation, right?
Yeah. There was a PlayStation version that came out.
Final Fantasy Chronicles. So it was like it looked like it was.
I have it on my shelf back there, actually.
It's like a collection.
Yeah, it was that and Chrono Trigger, I think. And then 5 and 6
Sick.
came out on one as well.
Really confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, if this wasn't confusing enough, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
feel
these
like
are
this
both Chrono Trigger.
this is probably a good reason of why, despite how much I loved playing Final Fantasy 8, 7, and 9 when I was like younger, and I was like, I want to do all the games. Like, I feel like this was probably a pretty good reason why I like dropped off the series, because
Yeah.
I was probably like, okay, well, I want to play some of the earlier ones. Which one do I want to do? And then I read like Final Fantasy 4, known as Final Fantasy 2, in its initial North American release, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Like, which one do I play? Like.
Oh, we're only at the beginning of the fucking weeds for this one too. Like it's gonna get ridiculous.
Let's see. There's the PlayStation version, which
I think there was a Wonder Swan version.
there's a Wonder Swan version, which I think was basically another port of the PlayStation version, which had like
Yeah.
the PlayStation version had FMVs, which I think they saved and kept. I can't remember when that was done.
Yeah.
But
They're on the PlayStation version.
there are
sure.
FMVs in the beginning of the DS version as well.
They're pretty good too. I will say, like I've been playing it on Steam, but like it's pretty well made.
Then the Game Boy Color, which looks
Game Boy Advance.
Game Boy
right?
Advance, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
which largely based on the Color Swan Wonder Swan version. Everything is just a Xerox of a Xerox, it seems.
Yeah. I will say that like in general,
Copy
I
of a
do
copy of a
like
copy.
the Game Boy Advance versions of the SNES games. Like I think they're done pretty well. And like all these ports are not done like in-house by Square Enix. They usually have somebody else do them. So there can be a giant variability in the quality of the ports for FF4.
Then there's the DS version, which is like a full-on 3D remake with voice acting, low poly models, which I am playing. And then they ported that. What was this? I'm looking at like there's they ported like that one and like another version based on like the PlayStation version to mobile. And then like the mobile, you can like change the difficulty of the DS port and all this stuff. Then PSP, and then it was on Steam, and like, oh my god.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the one on
there's a lot of
PSP.
versions.
So, and then now they just
Yeah.
announced like they're doing like pixel perfect remakes now.
Well, they're not pixel perfect. Well, anyway, that's the whole thing.
Curtis is pissed.
Yeah, the recent announcement where they're like, we're going back to pixels, except all of the sprites are different from the original ones. And it's like, oh, well, I guess that's something.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I will not say here what I think of it exactly, good or bad. It's right. It's fine. It's fine. More versions of FF4, fantastic. All about it.
Yeah, we clearly don't have enough of those yet, so.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And like, there are plenty, you can bleep this out if you want, ROM downloading sites. So you can play your ROMs on emulators if you'd like.
I love how there's so many versions of like most games in the Final Fantasy series, and then there's Final Fantasy VIII where it was famously not like ported to Switch, and
Yeah.
like when they did the remasters of the PlayStation ones, I think there was an E3 event where it literally was like Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 9, like all of these ones are coming to Switch, like every Final Fantasy game, but 8 was missing. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yep,
and then it turns out the reason it was missing is I think they didn't have the source code for it.
It was
something they had to like rebuild
assets.
It all. The assets, yeah. They had one version of it and they fucking lost a lot of it.
Well, I mean, apparently, like back in the day, it wasn't common to back everything up because, and I can kind of get it if it's a new like. Yeah, like,
I mean, even with the series,
someone probably fucking stole it, all Nicolas Cage style.
Hell yeah!
So that brings us through most of the releases of Final Fantasy IV, right?
Yeah, the official releases.
Now I'm gonna rewind the clock all the way back to the beginning once again because it's time for us to discuss the versions that we're playing, and I want to talk about translations as we go through them. If that's cool.
Yeah.
So, Alex, what are you playing?
I'm going to be playing a version. I'm just playing the DS version, playing on my 3DS.
Okay.
Yep, that's all. I gave myself a little bit of a handicap using a Game Shark of sorts, so I don't have to, because the DS version is notably a little harder than the original.
Yes, I will say the original, the SNES version, the easy type version, and the original 4 version that has the quote unquote higher difficulty, all pretty easy. Like there's some hard parts toward the end when we get to like the giant and the moon. Those are like weird jumps in difficulty, but even then, it's not that bad.
But yeah, I basically just added a cheat that allows me to get a little extra XP.
A little extra.
Just so I don't have to spend so much time grinding every week because I only have so many hours in a day. I'm an adult. I can do what I want.
Yeah.
Goddamn right. You not only didn't cheat the game, but also you did not cheat yourself. By cheating the game. So I am gonna try to play through all of it on the Final Fantasy II version that I have from an actual wink wink Super Nintendo that runs on my computer. And an actual cartridge, which also runs on my Windows 10 computer. Wink, wink.
You wouldn't have heard of it. It goes to another school.
Miyamoto, if you're listening to this, you can look the other way. It's all legit. I honestly do think I have a cart upstairs, actually, of
here's the
FF2.
Thing. They say that if you have a cartridge of the game, then you can play a ROM. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard that.
No, I think that is, like, you can't advocate for, I mean, you can do whatever the fuck you want, you know. I'm not the cops, and I don't want to be the cops. But I think it's like you don't promote that people should go to Zophar.net for their various needs of things. But anyway, we are not advocating for the death of the Sega Dreamcast. Or anything. It's just this game's fucking.
Am I allowed
20
to play?
Years old, 30 years old.
Balls.
Yeah. So I have it in my hand here. Am I allowed to play an FF2 ROM if I don't have FF2, but I do have Super Famicom FF4?
Absolutely not. I have called Miyamoto. He is on his way to your house. He's got Reggie with him. Reggie's just fucking frothing at the mouth. He's gotten even more powerful since becoming a GameStop exec.
Oh no, his body is ready.
His body has never been more ready. He's always been about kicking ass. So, no, but anyway, yeah. I'm playing an emulator ROM of Final Fantasy II, but I also purchased it as the complete collection, which is the Game Boy version on PS Vita.
Okay.
So I'll probably be playing through there as well. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I think we didn't even talk about that.
Also,
so there's 2 sequels to make.
My original plan was I was at a retro game store for the first time in over a year, a couple weeks ago, and they just so happened to have Final Fantasy IV on GBA. I have a kick-ass Game Boy Advance from Japan, an SP that my girlfriend got me many years ago. That's shaped it's colored like a Famicom. It's like branded to be like a Famicom version.
Right? Yeah.
Do you have a Game
Super
Boy player
awesome.
for GameCube? You should stream it.
I do, and I think I have a GameCube here, but I don't know if I have the disc for Game Boy Player. Again, getting it into the weeds.
There's so
But
many ways to
more
play.
importantly, when I went to go and do my homework, I was like, where the fuck did I put this tiny Game Boy Advance cartridge? I don't know where it is. That's why I bought it on PSP. But Incredible. I will say, I do like the PSP version because it is, or the Vita version, I guess, because it's like widescreen. The sprites are updated. It's based off of the Game Boy game, but it does have a nice little graphical overhaul, it looks like.
Sure. So I'm going to be playing two versions at once. I'm going to be playing the one on the PC, which is a port of the mobile version, which is a port of the DS version. My favorite.
The text looks like garbage.
The text looks like garbage. That's the one thing, is that like instead of a nice like pixely font or even a font that's in the same resolution as the rest of the game, there's like this like high-end shitty Arial or something like that, and it's like not even Arial bold. It just looks bad.
Times New Roman.
Using whatever the default was in the engine.
Yeah, right. And that's it's not
Fuck,
great.
what's the font testing like graphical design word? It's like the nonsense word.
The lorem ipsum or whatever.
Yeah, lorem ipsum.
All the
That's
text
my
is
favorite
just
Final
lorem
Fantasy
ipsum.
character.
Yeah.
I do like on the
Right.
DS version, it's pixel perfect. Like it kind of complements the screen resolution very nicely.
Yeah. And I'm also going to be playing a ROM hack of Final Fantasy II, which restores all the content that was cut out for the game, restores the difficulty, retranslates it to be a much more accurate translation to the original, and adds a run button, importantly, which
Hell
to me I was
yeah.
like, that's the one.
Yeah,
So-
that's the spice.
So translations.
Wonder Spawn, or I think no, the PlayStation version was I think the first one that had a run button.
Okay. Yeah. So this is like one that like would run on a like a EEPROM card or something for SNES, right? It is like the original ROM. It's just a hack. But there is a fantastic article if you go to legendsoflocalization.com that was written by Clyde Mandolin, where he talks about all the different translations of Final Fantasy IV. So I'm not going to like read through the entire thing because it's there. You can go look at it. Literally just type in Final Fantasy IV translations and it might be the first one that pops up in Google. But he does a cool thing of kind of organizing the translations into sections, right? There's like most accurate translations, ones if you want to do the weird ones or whatever. There's ones that are easy if you're not an English speaker because like the language is more simple. But importantly, I think we were telling the story earlier about localization for this game, how it was done very hastily. They didn't have a lot of time and didn't have any context for the game. So
And they fucking nailed it, and it's perfect, which is
here's the thing.
amazing.
Here's the thing. I love it. I love the SNES 2 translation so much because a lot of like the terms and jokes and gags that have lived on in the Final Fantasy series that they
Yeah.
still quote to today come from that translation. So when Tella says "you spoony bard," like that is
Bard,
a thing.
famous.
Yeah, it's famous. A lot of the terminology that he accidentally put in, they were just like, that is a good term. We should start using that actually, and just start using that. It's incredible. So
Yeah.
love it. There are a lot of mistakes with it where like people just say the wrong thing. There'll be like scenes where they're like, I'm not going to kill you, and then they kill somebody and you're like, were they lying? Or you play a later version, you're like, oh no, that was I am going to kill you. Okay. So
Weirdly enough, I've only played through like most of the intro cutscene, let's call it.
Yeah.
But I did it on both versions, the very fresh PSP version or PS Vita version that has the nice run button as well, and the FF2 version. And even immediately, I kind of noticed some differences where I was just like, I get the context because I played the PSP, the Vita one first. But like reading it on the 2 version, I'm just like, oh, that would maybe not make as much sense. Like, it's kind of just like, here, I did this thing, and now you do this thing. Bye.
Right.
And it's like there's a lot more text in the future translations that put that more into context instead of just being like, go to the Misty Mountain. It's like, okay.
So there are 2 of them that I like. It's not that they're bad. They're not bad. But I like typically don't recommend them or whatever. If you're all about the translation, not the gameplay. The gameplay is fine in both of them. But the PlayStation 1, the PS1 version, and the Game Boy Advance version both do this thing that like, oh, it drives me up a fucking wall. They add very, very niche internet pop culture references into the game, into speaking parts.
Ocarina
that like
Temple, baby.
Dude, there's one. Okay, so I didn't even think about this, right? In the first town we go to, somebody references something and says, they're talking about the Dark Knights, and they say they're cool, and by cool I mean totally sweet, which is the real ultimate power meme. If anybody remembers that from like early 2000s, the fucking like ninja website that was made on like GeoCities. Like very weird. The Game Boy Advance one accidentally refers to Kane as Sid multiple times, which Sid is a character in the game.
Sid is a character that we meet pretty instantly.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I got that backward. It refers to Sid as Kane. Yeah, but like very odd. Yeah. So there's those two versions have some weird shit going on. But there's also one that I didn't mention called the Project 2 retranslation. And Project 2 retranslation is I would almost call it the beta version of the version that I'm playing. Because the one I'm playing uses Project 2 as a building block and then changes a couple more things. But that is like where some people tried to go in and completely retranslate FF2, like the SNES version, and add back a lot of cut content. And then I think the one I'm playing, the Naming Way edition, just goes the rest of the way. But the version I'm playing, the Naming Way version, also makes its own changes too. So you may not like that if you're playing it, because they change like Fire 2 to Fira, right? And they change like Cure 3 to Curaga. So they changed that. Instead of the word summons, they use eidolons, which is what Final Fantasy would eventually start using instead of the word summons. So they basically were like, well, what are the Final Fantasy terminologies right now?
We're going to standardize this shit in this port.
Exactly.
Even though the standardization
they should have added more belts.
Changes.
they add more belts. That's right. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I wanted to say about it.
That wraps up season 4, y'all.
This is season 4. See y'all.
Goodbye. We're
for the next
taking
game.
A 5-month break now.
Yeah. See you for the next Final Fantasy game that we're doing, which will be. No, I'm just kidding. So, is there anything else you guys wanted to say about the development or intro or anything before we get into it?
No, not particularly.
The PlayStation, the one on iPad, you can use a controller with. That's all I gotta say.
Nice.
Oh wait, I do want to say
most
one more
versions
thing.
of this game, classically, like famously, you can use a controller to play, which is pretty cool.
Which was the style
Yeah, you know
at the
you can
time.
use a controller for the SNES one. Okay, one more thing, and it is for the Final Fantasy IV mobile version. Okay, so the mobile and PC ports are based off the DS1, but that does not mean that they're the exact same. Some small changes were made, right? And like obviously the text being one of them, right? The font choice. My favorite Final Fantasy IV translation gag, it's not Spoony Bard, it's none of that, right? It's the mobile version when it was originally released, introduces Cecil as Load Captain instead of Lord Captain. And I was like, Load Captain.
First screen, nailed it.
Got it in one.
Dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Actually, so that before we start part 2, how do we pronounce the main character's name?
I think because my version is voice acted, they do say Cecil.
Leon.
Oh, they say Cecil?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Cecil?
good, because I know somebody who was named that and they said Cecil. So good.
Okay.
Then. That
See,
solves that for us.
My brain is Simpsons pilled, as listeners of the show will know.
Yeah.
So anytime I read that word
Yes, Cecil means-
last season we were all talking about Seymour. This time around, I'm thinking about Sideshow Cecil.
That's right. Wait, was he Sideshow Cecil or Cecil?
I'm pretty sure it was Cecil.
Okay, I can't
Unless there's a Mandela effect or Mandela effects going on right now.
I'm going to do what
Sideshow
Bob never
Cecil.
could. Kill Dragon Knight Kane. throws him off a dam. All right, so let's take a break. How about we? And we'll come back and talk about the intro to this wunderbar game.
Let's get
Sounds
into the
good.
plot.
The plot.
It's Cecil on The Simpsons.
Well,
God fucking damn it.
all right, BRB.
So we're back from break. I did confirm that my brain sucks. And for years, I remembered the delivery of the line, Sideshow Cecil is completely wrong. He absolutely says Cecil. Sideshow Cecil. So it's Cecil.
Cecil is
All
part
right.
of the Berenstein universe.
Berenstein, because he's from the Castle Baron. That's so good.
Oh, through the looking glass here, people.
With the Jill
It's like they
Stein-
had
the
this
Jill
stuff
Stein
planned
universe.
out. The Jill Stein universe. Wow. That's a name I haven't heard since Darker Times. I guess they're equally dark now.
I guess times are just dark forever.
Yeah, I
A name
suppose
I haven't
so.
heard in a long time.
So the first thing I noticed on any of these, because I'm playing two versions at once, is the PC version asked me if I wanted to do normal or hard version, and I was like, what? And I don't know that I have the stones or the sauce to take on hard version. Actually,
Sure.
wait, you're playing the DS version. I should play the hard version so we see what the differences are.
Well, I was saying hard version, I think, is actually originally like what the DS version was, because I think that
Oh,
they said in like future versions after the ports of the DS, so I think they realized that DS version is hard version. So normal is like
Gotcha.
they set the bar lower to what normal would actually be.
okay. Well, you know what? I might do that then. That way we can have like all different looks at how the battles are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think also the DS version, which we'll talk about later, came with a sequel,
Yes.
Oh, the Wonder Years.
the After Years.
The Wonder Years.
Yeah, no,
and then,
that's the After
And
Years
then
stuff.
they made a.
They had Joe Cocker do the theme song of the Red Wings theme. It was pretty good.
Yeah, they ended up. So they made that sequel, and then they also made a prequel to the sequel, to quote our Between the Buried and Me reference earlier. What is that one called? There's like a 1.5 version 2. There's the After Years, and then there's the Intermission, whatever that one is. The point is, those games both have incredibly like. They're not well loved in the Final Fantasy community. Let's put it that way. They are not thought fondly of. I haven't played them though, so I'll be excited to see them.
Imagine liking a game that's not well loved in the Final Fantasy community.
We're looking at you, new version of Dissidia NT. Fucking, you know, on Steam how they say like positive, you know, overwhelmingly positive or whatever. I think that one has an overwhelmingly negative score.
Just like my old Xbox gamer score.
Yeah. So we'll crack into this bad boy. I think no matter what version you're playing, all these things. I mean, all the scenes in all the games pan out the same way, right? Like the stories are
I
the
think
same.
there's going to be differences in dialogue. We already kind of went over the more funny aspects of that. But yeah, so I feel like we'll probably point some stuff out here and there, but I feel like it would be pretty impossible and pretty boring to probably be like, in this version of the game, the crew says, Captain Cecil, we're about to arrive.
Right.
We'll do what we did in season 2 is like if there's a jarring difference and it's like, wait, your guy says this, that sounds way cooler than my version.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll knock you down.
So
Yeah, that's good. So the game starts, I wouldn't say in media res, but it like starts with like a line of dialogue and then a flashback immediately to a thing that happened, which I think is funny. So it gives us like a frame and then a frame within a frame, like the very first thing that happens. Because when the screen finally comes up, we are on some airships. There's a set of 5 airships flying through the sky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're basically just pirate ships with propellers, right?
Yeah, they're literally just pirate
With
ships
hella
with propellers.
propellers.
Yeah, hella propeller. And on it are some crewmen, some like knights, I guess, and a dark knight, right? A dude in all black armor, and he looks like ultra menacing. And
Looks-
the game, if we're playing,
I guess it depends on which version you're playing, but he looks like a fucking like cool like Power Ranger in like the 3DS or the 3D version.
yeah,
Yeah.
he kind of
yeah.
on the in the battle screen in the SNES version, I get that kind of feeling too, kind of like the Black Ranger, right?
Yeah.
But the crew says to him, they say, hey, we're almost back to Baron, right? They're like, hey, we're getting ready to arrive at our destination. And he kind of like goes into a memory of something that just happened after that, right? And he starts thinking back to what they just completed. So they're on their way back from a mission, right?
Yeah,
And,
I think they added like a little dialogue is like, well, the captain seems really down. It's like, well, you know, like there's like tons of exposition. Like, yeah, after what we did, who wouldn't be? Kind of thing.
Right,
Yeah.
and then we get to see what they did. So they had just completed a mission, so we actually get to see it. And in the 3D versions, they go into a little bit more detail. You get to see a little bit more violence. But apparently, this Dark Knight and his crew just barged into some city and stole a crystal from some peaceful mages, right? So they were like there's like the black mage character and the white mage character, like looking people from Final Fantasy 1. They kind of look similar, and you see them getting like straight up killed in the 3D version. And in the 2D version, it just kind of looks like they throw them to the side. And then there's a peaceful elder like protecting this crystal. And he's like, oh, you can't do this. Like, you cannot take this crystal. You don't know what you're dealing with here. And they throw him aside and they grab the crystal and take it. So they're stealing resources from weaker countries.
Mm-hmm. Violently.
Man, Final Fantasy, yeah.
What a fantasy.
But we're led to believe, because that scene ends and we come back to the present where we're on the airship. And we are at least led to believe that, like, the captain and the crew all are like, yo, that was really fucked up, and they're like a little traumatized.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting in the 2 version on SNES, the elder just like, all right, take the crystal, and then the crew just says, you should have said that earlier, like right after killing his mages and stuff or whatever.
It's pretty cold. It's pretty fucked up. And again, like, this is like the reason why when I was younger I was like, yo, video games actually fucking cool as fuck. Because like I don't ever remember playing a video game where like you kill a dude and then all of your characters are like, that was so fucked up. I can't believe we did that. And I was like, oh my god, like this is so deep.
Especially because, like, if you're just kind of going into this blind and you've played other Final Fantasy games, you would think that this is setting up to be like, Cecil's the bad guy, or Cecil's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Because I was like, damn, this is cool. I'm going to have to fight this cool, like, this is like Garland or whatever, like, in the first one.
Yeah.
Sick. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, he has like the big evil armor on too, so he looks all like ultra menacing, but like no, he's the main character.
Yeah, and in the Vita version it's pretty cool too, because they have like the little portraits of your characters that Final Fantasy games usually have, like in the dialogue boxes. So I saw that and I'm like, and like the song that's playing is super kick-ass, and it sort of sounds like the Imperial March from Star Wars. Like it's got some hits that really
the
reminded
Red
me
Wings
of that.
theme. What a fucking bop. Holy crap. That's
so I was just like,
song.
These are the bad guys. And then I'm like, oh no, are we the baddies?
I will say, so we're not going to get to this for a long time, but Final Fantasy IV has, I think, maybe the strongest emotional reuse of a song in any of the Final Fantasy games. We'll get to it when we get to it, but like, it's this theme, and they use it again way later in the game, and I'm always like, holy shit, every time they fucking use it. It's incredible.
Hell yeah.
So, but yeah. So we see that, like, even though they just did these actions, we're already presented with like this moral quandary of like, am I good? Am I evil? Right? Like, we just did this honestly terrible thing, but does having second thoughts about it make you good? You know, like, how do we feel about this? You know what I mean? Like, so I appreciate that, like, intro to the game, we're not even 2 minutes into it, and it's already hitting us with this. Fantastic. Good shit.
Yeah, really cool.
But so the crew is still like kind of questioning what they've done. They feel terrible about it, and I guess Cecil feels like he has a duty. Like he also disagrees with it. Like he's like the most disturbed by it, but he's also trying to be the captain of the Red Wings at the same time. And so he's
trying to be the strong one who's like, these are our orders. I can't question these orders. It's for the greater good. Because he seems like, I mean, we might not know this yet, but like through the rest of the scene, he kind of seems pretty noble.
Yeah, right. And he seems to have faith that, like, the King of Baron, who is who he works for, he's like, no, the King of Baron would not do something just for evil. Like,
Mr. Burns, I think we can trust the president of Baron. Now, give it back. Give what back?
Give what back? Yeah, so... so yeah, he's like, yeah, like you said, we can't question the king. We have to do this. This orders is orders, and it's for the best, right? He like says it's for the common good, right? Mm-hmm. But obviously they don't know what they've taken.
Yeah, then the crew is like trying to like confront him, right? Like, don't you feel bad about this? And he's like, shut up, come on, we gotta orders are orders kind of thing. Like he's obviously upset about it, but he is trying to like displace some of that discomfort. Like it's just what we have to do. Like there's probably a good reason for it.
We are the Red Wings, the pride of Baron. Must we now be thieves, sent to plunder from the weak?
Enough.
But Lord Captain...
Listen to me. We did no more than what our kingdom's peace and prosperity required us to do.
And then we are accosted upon by monsters. So our conversation is cut short. Monsters appear. And then depending on which version you're playing, you either watch a nice cutscene or you actually get to fight them. Because if you're playing like
interesting.
For me, it felt like a tutorial section where like, here's how you fight in this game kind of thing.
Yeah.
In the 3DS version, I think we fight 3 float eyes, which are just like the normal flying eyeball things from most games. And then a zoo, which is like the zoo from Final Fantasy X.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
so familiar Final Fantasy friends, named differently depending on which version you're doing as well. Like, I think it's called Float Eye in both the versions that I played, but instead of it being called a zoo in the Super Nintendo North American one, it's called a Raven.
Yeah. But yeah, and so in the SNES one, if I'm not mistaken, Carl, it just automatically acts, right? Like we just see Cecil fight
immediately. Cecil just throws a firebomb. Or I think in the Vita version, it was a firearm, which makes sense because it's, again, standardization of Final Fantasy terms. Like, if you're fighting a bomb, we've talked about how you just rip its fucking arm off and then have an explosive.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what he uses in this version, but it's just...
So here's another weird thing. So all the different characters in this game have like fight an item and then some other things, right? They have the thing that's specific to them. And in the SNES 2, they just don't give one to Cecil. He just has like he's just fighting an item, isn't it? That's all he has. And then, but in the original version, he had a skill called Dark, where he could hit all the enemies on the screen at once for like 100% accuracy. Yeah, and like he uses that normally, like in the Japanese one, he would use Dark on them and it would hit them all. But I guess because in the original one they didn't have that skill, he threw a firebomb instead. It's kind of interesting. Which also I don't.
The DS version does have darkness. From the game. You have attack, darkness, and items in the DS version.
Yeah.
Can't explain all the feelings that this game is making me feel.
Guitar! Yeah, so either way, they're do-nothing battles, right? You just press the attack button a couple times, or you watch the cutscene where he throws an item and then you win. And they mention that monsters are appearing more and more often, which is like kind of a generic Final Fantasy thing. Like it's always at the time where more monsters are appearing, right? Something's wrong with the planet. But then the scene kind of cuts and we arrive at Baron, right?
Yeah, I do want to point out a quick difference.
Sure.
Where there's the airship. After the battles in the Vita version that I'm playing, it's notably like fucked up after the zoo attack, where there's like things kind of broken throughout the on the deck, and also like slash marks, which is really cool. So like, just does more world building and scene building of like these battles. Like it looked pretty easy, but like some of the soldiers that are with Cecil are like kind of hurt, and like it wasn't just like easy, like we don't have to worry about these monsters. Also, like in the Super Nintendo version, it looks like when you're flying you just see the sky below you and some clouds, like a blue sky, but in the version that I'm playing you see like a close up like higher res version of the world map, which is really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
You see some terrain and stuff.
So we arrive at the castle and we meet a new character, our second named character in the game, Bygone.
Joe Bygone.
Joe Bygone.
We're going to let bygones be bygones in this one.
We just got to push him left over the course of the game. But he doesn't even so much as give us like a hello. He just goes, "Oh, well done. The crystal is ours." And Cecil immediately is just like, "Yo, those people were helpless." And he names who they are, right? The Mysidians.
Yeah.
And so that's the people that we stole this from.
The MySpacians.
The MySpacians. And he says they were just helpless. And like Bygone doesn't even
They were proficient in HTML, but they were helpless.
Yeah. And like Bygone doesn't care. He's just like, it doesn't matter. It's not your place to question that. We have the crystal. That's what matters. And so he says, "Follow me." And so you're being led through the castle. You don't get to move around right here. You literally just have to follow Bygone all the way up. But he goes up to the room before the throne room and tells you to wait there, right? And so Cecil's left behind. Bygone goes into the throne room and we follow him. We see what he's doing. So he talks to the king, and the king's super excited because they have the water crystal now. We get to find out that that's the crystal that they have.
Vaporeon's baby, let's go.
Yeah. And he says, "By the way, Cecil's faith in you is starting to waver. Like, just FYI, like, he no longer trusts you. And the king kind of brushes it aside. He's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't care if Cecil trusts me or not. We have the water crystal. That's what matters. Everything's good. So go ahead and send Cecil in now.
Yeah, and again, just the Super Nintendo translation of it, completely, all that subtext, all of that kind of stuff, completely gone, because Baigan just says, Your Majesty, I'm afraid Cecil has developed quite a rebellious air. And then the king says, truly? Well done, Baigan. We must do something. Call him in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's literally, he's just like, we got to stamp this shit out now. There's no, like...
Yeah. I think in the more modern translations, he's like aware of it, but he just doesn't care. He's just
he's like, that
whatever,
doesn't
I don't
matter.
care.
I don't, yeah.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about this fool.
It's like
whatever.
the thing that lame people post online where it's like they get owned and then they just like tweet the picture where it was like, why would a lion worry himself with the opinions of sheep?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So they call Cecil in. Cecil still has the water crystal himself, so he hands it over to Baigan. Baigan delivers it to the king. And they I love that in the SNES one, they face each other. Like Baigan and the king face each other and just giggle. And so I'm like, oh, it's like when me and my friends have a stupid plan and we're like, hee hee, and we're like giggling about it.
A stupid inside Cecil's joke. You're like, he said 3
Yeah. And Cecil's completely out of it. They're just like, Cecil's dumb. And so he's dismissed. Cecil's dismissed, right? They're like, you can leave now. And he takes a couple steps out of the room and then is like, no, I have to ask about this. Like, I can't just let this go. And he turns around and is like, Your Majesty, you know that what we just did, right? Like, you know the violence that we just gave to unarmed people who didn't even try to defend themselves. And the king is like, you son of a bitch. He is real indignant with Cecil about this. He's like, you would question me? Bruh, you come at the king, you best not miss. And you done missed. So he strips Cecil of his title of the load captain of the Red Wings.
Oh no!
So he's no longer load captain. Yeah, he load private.
The DS version, he's not even it's kind of two-sided, not quite as direct. Where Cecil is not really facing him straight on. He's more like, what's your plan? That's kind of, he wants a reason. He's not going straight for the throat with the king. He's just kind of, but he's but the same thing. He's like, why do you question me? But,
yeah. So he gets his title stripped. So he's no longer, so we're again, not even 5 minutes into the game and Cecil's already had 2 jobs.
We lost our job.
We lost our job. So
I want to point out this very funny interaction on the Final Fantasy quote-unquote 2 where Cecil says, Your Majesty, King, what? Baigan, what is it? Cecil, we do not understand the meaning of taking crystals away from honest people. King, disobeying me? Cecil, no, I don't. King,
I don't.
We do. Oh, I am, you are.
We do know of your discontent, Cecil. If you cannot, hang on. Yeah. If you cannot trust me, I can no longer place the Red Wings in your command. You are dismissed from your post, Your Majesty. And then it's just go and hunt the summoned monsters of the Misty Valley and take this package to the Village Mist. You may depart tomorrow morning.
So it's a package in that one. He just says, hey, I need you. But by the way, take this package to the Village of Mist. Peace.
It's literally just okay, they read the Japanese translation and they were like, okay, we need to make this more succinct. So let's just cut out all dialogue and just say here is the bullet points of this interaction.
Yeah, right.
So in the Japanese version, it looks like they actually brought this back for later versions where instead of go and hunt the summoned monsters of Misty Valley, it says, instead you are assigned to the Genju suppression duty. We have reports of a fabled monster at Genju infesting the Misty Valley. You are to defeat this monster and deliver this bomb ring to Mist Village. You depart tomorrow morning.
The version that I'm playing, the Naming Way one, says you are to deliver the Carnelian signet ring to the people of the Village of the Mist. And it literally says they'll know what to do with it. Don't worry about what it does. They'll know. And by the way, there is a monster blocking the Valley of the Mists. You need to exterminate that monster as well.
Yeah. So, and in the Vita version,
the
it's
bomb ring that ruins it. You can't call it a bomb ring. That's the surprise.
Damn it, dude.
That's the plot twist.
This ring is the bomb.
It's fucking sick, dude. I only knew it as a package, or B, the whatever that word is that you use, signet.
The signet,
Like,
yeah.
They didn't even say it was a ring. I had to ask my girlfriend what it was, and she was like,
Yeah.
signet.
Signuts.
But then homie rules.
Yo,
come in.
we're introduced to our homie, Kane.
Hell yeah.
So a dragoon bursts into the room and says, "Your Majesty, Cecil did nothing wrong. Femto did nothing wrong."
How dare you?
But yeah, so and then the king is like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I like the."
He's
I
like,
think
if you love Cecil so much, why don't you marry
Why don't
him?
you marry
You're
him?"
You're banished too, motherfucker.
Yeah, that's what happens. And I like in the, I think it's the PC version, he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that this concerned you." And I was like, that's incredible for him to
Damn.
say. Holy shit. Somebody call an ambulance. This man suffered 3rd-degree burns.
Yeah, in fucking Super Nintendo, he literally just walks in and says, "Your Majesty, Cecil didn't ... And then the king just says, "If you're concerned about with Cecil that much, go with him, Kane. Your Majesty. Now leave with the package." And it's like, literally, it's like, I don't even think they even say that he got demoted as well. It's just like, you have to think of that yourself.
You're
And,
you're just given like a shitty job to do.
Yeah, he didn't say anything. He said Cecil didn't. And it could have been like, Cecil didn't want to follow your orders, so I tried to stop him. But instead he's just like, Cecil didn't. Oh, you're taking his side? It's like, let him finish his thought.
He's a little riled up, I think. He's just kind of like, you two, fuck all you.
I like that, like, after that, Cecil tries to keep speaking to the king, but the guards get in his way, and they very hilariously shift left and right as he's like trying to talk around them, like dodge around them, and be like, "Hey, but I," and they keep getting in his way so he can't see the king. It's very funny. And then they push him out.
Yeah, I also really like that the sprites used in the versions that I'm playing are both the same sprite as Baigan. But like a different color. Like they're wearing blue armor instead of red.
I will also say, and I guess this is probably not too much of a spoiler, because like whatever, this is just how Final Fantasies go.
Yeah,
but I like that in
one
of the translations that we're looking at here, let's see here. Boop, 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 boop. It's the one, it's Final Fantasy IV script that actually has the blue text boxes that we're looking at.
Oh yeah,
it shows the sprite for Baigan, but the sprite for Baigan is not the one we see on the screen. And I was like, well, that kind of ruins it.
I saw that like as I was following along, and I was like, oh well, shit. I mean, obviously, I can tell what's going on. This isn't my first Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
Very
so
funny.
that's Bomb Ring and also Baigan sprite.
Yeah, that upsets me so much that they call it the bomb ring, because that's a plot twist.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. But yeah, so
Take this betrayal ring, and they'll know what to do with it.
Yeah. So
this can of nuts, mixed nuts. I'm sure they'll love it.
Oh, mixed nuts, my favorite, and I'm so hungry too.
you give it to the elder of the village of Mist, and they open it, and it's like a bunch of snakes pop out. Whoa! Got him.
Would you like to sniff this flower that the king gave me? It smells so
squirts
nice.
with his boutonniere.
It's on my lapel. Yeah.
Yeah. He handshakes him and he has a joy buzzer. He's like, yeah, "Greetings from the king of Baron, dipshit," and he just leave. But yeah, that's where we're gonna end it today. So I like, this is pretty short plot wise. So the bullet points: we were the leader of the, what was it? The Red Wings.
The Red
We
Wings,
stole a
yeah.
crystal from some innocent people called Mysidians. Now we're not the leader of the Red Wings because the king is an asshole. And now Cecil and Kane
So,
need to go
Did we
defeat.
kill the mages that were...
No.
Okay, because everything surrounding this makes it seem like we killed them. Like their
there's-
sprites disappear in the thing. But I will say, I
Next
want to talk about that
episode?
next episode. Yeah.
I was saying, next episode we
'Cause I
learn
was
about
like,
that.
Oh.
Yeah, and many episodes from now we learn more about that.
Okay,
So,
sick. Cool.
A little bit will be elucidated next time. A lot of it will be elucidated several episodes from now. But yeah, so now what we're going to be concerned with next episode is going to be defeating the monster that's in the Valley of the Mist, taking the package, the ring that is totally innocuous, to the Village of the Mists and giving it to them. They'll know what to do with it. It's fine.
For-
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
Go wrong? That's the only thing that's ever
First
gone
thing that's ever gone wrong. Yeah. We're also going to talk about the town. So there's the castle that we're in right now, and there's a town right next to it too. So we're going to explore both of those.
Is it like Final Fantasy 1 rules where the castle is like a
Yes.
separate? Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
I'm wily to that old trick after fucking having a reset. And
It's like, yeah, it's exactly the same. Let me real quick look at our episode list.
I will say, while Curtis is looking up the episode guide, it feels real nice to just be seeing an overworld that's like very similar to the overworld in Final Fantasy 1.
Sure, yeah.
It's kind of nice to return to that. It's been a while.
All right. So next time, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the castle and town, the cave that we're going into, the Valley of the Mists, and the Village of the Mists. We'll wrap up the events that happened there, and we'll save as soon as you get to the world map after that village. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. There's
Sounds
not too much
real
that really...
good.
There's really not too
real
much
good. We're
that can
playing
happen
Final
or go
Fantasy
wrong in
again,
a way,
dude.
so... Yeah, I know. We're playing Final Fantasy again.
Feels
it's good
fucking
times.
That's good.
I'm going to say this, but like we'll see exactly how long I stick to it. But I did it once, so I might start streaming my Final Fantasy homework on Twitch. I had a good time doing that this week, so I may continue to do that. We'll see. So just keep an eye out for that. You come hang out and talk about Final Fantasy, and we can all workshop jokes together.
Yeah, you may be able to get your joke on the podcast through Curtis's mouth.
I will
With
not
no
credit you
credit.
for it. Yeah. How about you guys? What do y'all think? I'm loving being back in, by the way. I love Final Fantasy IV. It's great.
I am very excited to be playing Final Fantasy again. I didn't play it much, but I got like a little choked up just being like, fuck yeah, dude, I get to play Final Fantasy again. And
Yep.
like a classic one. Again, I fell in love with 10. I really liked it, but it's very nice to just be like in a JRPG again.
Yeah, classic style, fucking
Hell
menu
yeah.
based RPG.
Sprites, love a sprite.
Yeah, I will say like I think the SNES version, like the reason I love the Super Famicom SNES version so much is it just screams along. Like the battles load instantly, the ATB gauges are fast. Like it's just snappy. There's not a lot of like downtime, and I mean like maybe to its detriment, according to some people, there's not a lot of customization, but I don't care because I'm just like, oh, that means I don't have to sit around and do things. I can just go. Like I'm always 5 minutes from the next big plot point.
Hell yeah.
So, like, I love that.
That's very exciting, especially a nice change from last season. Again, fell in love with Final Fantasy X, but my fucking God, some of those parts just like...
Like, the dungeon we're getting ready to go to is one screen.
Love it.
I love it.
I mean,
They're just like,
the cloisters of
hey,
Trials,
you're in the bottom
a lot
left,
of
go
them,
to the top right.
a lot of the cloisters of Trials were only one screen.
Yeah,
Why
I guess
would you
that's fair.
complain?
I don't think that there's any puzzles in this game. It's just
fucking God, dude.
It's just you're on this corner of the screen, go to the other corner, and then some other giant like earth-shaking thing will happen, and you're just like, damn, it's just hits all the way down.
Yo, hell yeah.
This game fucking whips.
We need to add orchestra hits to this season.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's all I got to say. Did we secure a theme song?
Yes.
Ooh, excited to hear it.
Oh, wait, Alex. Are you ready to demote us from Captain of the Red Wings?
Sure. Thank you to Night of the Round for the intro and theme music. You'll be hearing it slowly rising in volume behind me. It is the fucking Red Wings theme. It rules.
Which was the style at the time.
Thank you to Nobuo Uematsu for the original music for this, but also thank you to Junya Nakano and Kenichiro Fukui. Hold on, me.
Old Kenny. Yeah, our
Old
buddy
Kenny
Kenny.
Kenny F.
Kenny F. Yeah.
We're going to be better with names this season.
So Junya Nakano and Kenichiro Fukui did the rearrangements for the DS version, which if I decide to drop in, thanks to them as well.
I do like calling him Kenny F. He's the precursor to Kenny G.
I was just going to say that.
So good.
Leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps. I'm really welcoming all the people who've been finding us lately. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
kicks
been really
ass.
nice.
I didn't know so many people listened until I stopped doing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird feeling.
I will say every time, because sometimes people ask us, they're like, Oh man, do you guys have like a Patreon or do you want donations? And I'll tell you this, every time you feel like you want to donate to us, tell somebody about it and be like,
that's a good
yo,
point.
there's this sick podcast, and that is like worth infinity dollars.
Or go
Every
watch
time
Carl
someone asks you,
Germ,
yeah.
and he'll forward that money somewhere better.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, donate to Carl. Or, well, I guess by the time we hear this, it'll
probably
be over.
But I mean, find a fund to donate to Palestine. There's no shortage of them. There's a lot of need there. Donate to a Bell fund. You know, there's tons of great causes.
Are you telling me that
also,
there's still going to be issues after your fundraiser?
Yeah, man. You know, that's how I keep the
Gamers
content
can't solve
flowing.
every problem.
Gamers, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
Drop us a message at 530 Materia, if you will. And find us at every FNFF on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and also join our Discord, which if you find us on Twitter, there's a link to that. It's been growing and it's a fun place. People are currently, as I'm talking, sharing their really cool Final Fantasy tattoos.
I sharing,
am going to do my best to not let work crush my soul and spirit and mental well-being, and spend more time in the Discord this season.
Yeah, there's been a really good discussion going on about pickles versus cucumbers, and the current place that it's at is chocolate-covered pickles, so it's a good place to be.
Chocolate-covered pickles, yes.
Give us a 5-star review on iTunes and tell us if you prefer pickles or cucumbers, which is the bastardization and which is the true one.
Unsullied. Which is the Red Wing Captain, which is the infidel.
Spoiler, all cucumbers must climb Mount Ordeals to become a pickle. That's a good joke for anybody who has played FF4.
And if you haven't, but can guess it from the context and also listen to earlier seasons of the podcast, a cucumber must get the rat's tail from a dungeon and bring it to Bahamut.
Yeah, and it becomes a pickle. That's right.
Oh man, we're getting dangerously close to Rick and Morty territory. We gotta fucking end this episode soon, dude. My IQ isn't high enough.
The Dark Knight turned himself into a pickle. Funniest shit I've ever seen.
Funniest shit I ever seen.
See you next week, y'all.
Goodbye.
Bye. Love you all.